Okay, we're our last speaker of the day, Virgil Goode. Many of you have heard it. He's spoken here several times in the National Committee before. He comes to us from Rocky Mount, Virginia. He served in the U.S. Congress from 1997 to 2009. He has a BA from the University of Richmond, a JD from the University of Virginia Law School. He served in the Army National Guard. He grew up as a Democrat, was elected the first time to Congress as a Democrat. And as he continued to get more wise and more experienced and more knowledgeable, he switched to independent. He's elected as an independent. Then he switched to Republican and elected as a Republican. And now he's come home to the Constitution Party. As a Democrat, as a congressman representing the southwest area of Virginia, he was known for outspoken as anti-amnesty, against immigration policies of this country, looking for pursuing immigration reform. He is promoting veterans' health care reform. He served on the Liberty Caucus Committee. He's been a staunch defender of gun rights, a staunch defender of the pro-life position. He has written articles. He's been outspoken about the way to stop the anchor baby problem that we have, and explaining how the Constitution doesn't require that everyone born on our soil is automatically a citizen of the United States. He's been a great friend of freedom, great friend of liberty, and now a great friend of the Constitution Party, and serves on the executive committee. Let's welcome Virgil Goode to the platform.
Jim, thank you for those kind words. It's always an honor and a privilege to be with you for your conferences and your meetings, and for the opportunity to say a few things. I want to say to Jim Clymer, thank you for your outstanding work. Jim travels all over the country. Last year in the fall, he flew from, I guess, your home county, Lancaster, down to Charlotte, North Carolina, but he has really put his heart and soul into the Constitution Party, and it's rare that any party can claim any leader any more dedicated than Jim Clymer. I also want to say thanks to Darrell and Joan Castle. If Joan were to be paid minimum wage for what she does for the Constitution Party, she would have a nice IRA account by now. Joan, thank you so very much. I also want to express appreciation to Howard Phillips for his willingness to step forward in past decades to lead this party, to lead the taxpayers of the United States of America, and to stand up for liberty. And I've got to tell you about Howard. You might think, well, he's not way out front now. He still is widely known throughout the United States for his past positions and for his courage to standing up to the Nixon administration and cutting when those in that administration didn't want someone to cut. Howard, thank you for all you have done. And lastly, I want to say thanks to all of you for being here from California to New York all across in Mississippi, all across this great country, to participate in these regional, national committee meetings is a cost, and you have shelled out your money. And I would have to say, and I've said this once before, I believe at Minnesota, most parties do not have that dedication and commitment. You are truly dedicated, and this country at this point in history needs that dedication to change us, to put us on the path for a bright and glorious future. I want to make a comment or two about Darrell's presentation. I fully agree with Darrell's thought about Libya. I cannot understand why we jumped in Libya. As he indicated, if your standard is we're going to save the lives of the people in that particular country, then we ought to have been in Iran, we ought to have been in Syria. You could go right down the list. We'd be in a number of countries of the Middle East if that's your standard. Well, maybe that's not your standard. Maybe it was, if the Arab League asks us to come, we will come. Or if the United Nations tells us to jump, we're going to say, how high? I say absolutely no. Barack Obama made the bad decision. You should not be listening and doing the beholding of the Arab League and the United Nations. You ought to be standing up for the United States of America. Darrell also mentioned about Jimmy Carter's conference at Camp David. I think the final arrangements between Jordan, Egypt, and Israel were at Dayton, Ohio. And I think I'm right now, it's the Dayton Peace Accords, and Jimmy Carter got the Nobel Peace Prize for that. I don't know whether he kept his $1 million or whether he donated it to charity. But I can tell you that Nobel Peace Prize has cost the taxpayers of the United States since around 1980 almost $120 billion. A constant payout every year to Anwar Sadat, then Mubarak, a constant payout to Jordan, and a constant payout to Libya. That is the foundation for that Peace Prize. Around $120 billion. That doesn't get mentioned, but that is, you can look at the appropriations bills for each year from the date of the peace accords that Carter was involved with down to the present. And that is just for that area of foreign aid. I want to talk real briefly about our deficit and our debt. As previous speakers has indicated, the debt is about $14 trillion or over $14 trillion. Our deficit is around $1.5 trillion. I was greatly interested in the 2010 campaign. Republicans got control of the U.S. House and made gains in the U.S. Senate. And I would say on terms of spending, the Republicans are less big spenders than the Democrats for the most part. And the national media has said that the Ryan budget, which overwhelmingly passed the United States House, the stations like Fox say, well, they are cutting $6.5 trillion over 10 years. My point to you is when you're doing a budget, if you're a household, you're not going to look at what you're going to be doing in year 10. You got to be thinking about this year. And the Ryan budget is $1 trillion in deficit. And those that ran in 2010 saying, elect us, we will get our house in order, I would have to question whether they have done that good a job. I will grant you that Boehner has done a better job than Pelosi would have done. But you've got to have the courage to cut, and this year, to avoid increasing the debt limit with the budget that was the one we're in right now, and you had to cut a minimum of $600 billion, maybe $800 billion, and that was not done. For us to get on track, we have got to make major cuts. And I can tell you, most in office, and I was there, you hate to make people mad. And when you start cutting, you're going to make people mad. And I'd have to say, Rand Paul's suggestion about $500 billion and Michelle Bachmann about $500 billion, that was more in the ballpark where you needed to be. They talked about Planned Parenthood, gave up on that. Can you imagine giving the millions to Planned Parenthood? That should be a zero out from the very beginning. The National Endowment for the Arts, which is more important? We'll take Medicare or the NEA. I'd say zero to the NEA, zero to the National Endowment for the Humanities, and zero for public broadcasting, which gets forward funding. But now it's peanuts on the way to $500 billion. You got to cut Department of Agriculture on agricultural subsidies. And that's going to make some people in the Midwest mad. Going to make a few in Virginia mad. But you've got to cut Department of Agriculture. You've got to cut every department. And I believe Dr. Haynes mentioned No Child Left Behind. It's time to give that program zero. I think when I was in Congress, there was 65 of us, 60 or 65 voted against it. That is just a way to ensnare more localities, having to spend more money to get a few extra federal dollars, when the federal government should not be running our secondary school systems and should not be having its pulse like Barack Obama and the Democrats wanted over public education all over the United States. It's time to go to zero, and you can save in the tens of billions of dollars if you will do that. Another pet peeve of mine, it consistently has been foreign aid. $50 billion right there. We get so wrapped up in these foreign countries. It's a constant shell out of money. And I thought when the change in the House occurred in 2011, that perhaps the Foreign Ops Subcommittee would be somewhat different. But I had the opportunity on C-SPAN 2 to see that meeting, see the testimony of Secretary of State Clinton, and to listen to the majority Republicans on that committee praise her for the wonderful job she was doing. Let me tell you what she was suggesting. Giving more money to Egypt after Mubarak has already left with the billions we gave him under the Dayton Peace Accord plus additional foreign aid, wants to give more money to Egypt to ensure that they are friendly with us. I don't believe you can spend enough money over there to ensure that they were going to be our friends. You are right. And then on Iraq, she envisioned setting up ambassador offices. She named off the localities in Iraq. More money. It's never going to end. the place to start, and Darrell said it, we've got problems in the United States of America. Let's look after the USA first, and if it means we've got to open up all of America to drill, I say drill here and now in the United States of America. Some of the results of the 2010 election have indicated that really our choice were between liberal Democrat and Democrat light. We don't need Democrat light. We need the Constitution Party of the United States of America. Erasing our borders, last area I want to touch on. I've talked about this in the past, but I can't overemphasize the monetary savings that would occur if you eliminated illegal immigration and drastically reduced legal immigration. In fact, I have written an article calling for a moratorium with a few exceptions for fiancés, adoptions, very few exceptions. We have unemployment, about 14 million unemployed. If you eliminated the illegals in the workforce and reduced or eliminated most of the green cards except in those areas I just mentioned, you would have about 7 million more jobs available for United States citizens. And that would cut your unemployment rate down to about 5 or 6%. But you're not going to hear any of the Republicans advocating that, and I know you're not going to hear the Democrats advocating that. They want a constant inflow of persons from socialist countries around the world because they know if they get here, as soon as they get the right to vote, the chances are good they're going to vote Democratic and for Obamanism, and I am fed up to here with our country going down that path. We let in tens of thousands of asylees and refugees every year. I think it's about 75,000, some years more of that, some years less. Most asylees and refugees the taxpayers pay for a considerable length of time. I couldn't help but reading, and this, I'm basing this on newspaper articles, about Barack Obama's aunt. Came to this country illegal, but sought asylum status. She said, they said she was getting public housing. She said, the United States is a Christian nation, and I know they would want me to have that. Well, let me tell you the way the law used to be. When you came to a country, not where she came illegally, but if you came legally, you had to have sponsors. And I think it would be wonderful if Barack Obama would be the sponsor. And that means take care of the public housing bill, take care of the Medicaid bill, and take care of the public assistance bill rather than have the United States taxpayers pay for it. And based on his 2010 tax return, he'd have plenty to spare in doing that. But when I talk about illegal immigration, asylees are legal, refugees are legal, huge cost. I'm not talking about a few $1,000s, I'm talking about millions and billions. The diversity visa program, $50,000 a year, by lottery. A lot from the Middle East, a lot from the countries that Darrell pictured on the board. We make loans and grants to non-citizens all the time. And I think our country is, and I have to lay some blame at the president for this. The focus is not on citizenship. It is just anyone that wants to be here, it's fine for them. And let's make sure that the government is helping in every way possible. Now, I have followed closely, as I'm sure you have, Donald Trump and the birth certificate situation of Barack Obama. Why would a guy spend millions of dollars and wait 3 years to produce a long-form birth certificate? I think his philosophy is citizenship really doesn't matter. Why should I have to produce a birth certificate? That shouldn't be forced on anyone. We are all, quote, citizens of the world. Well, let me tell you this. We have got to save the United States of America before we can worry about saving the world, and we can't do it through the Federal Reserve and constant borrowing by Barack Obama. We just finished 2010. There'll be a few elections in 2011, some local races, and hopefully some Constitution Party candidates will do well. Has the one in Alabama happened yet? May 10th. Possibility of, well, assured of doing well there, possibility of a victory in the state legislative races. Then comes 2012. And they'll tell you, just like Randy was saying, well, don't get involved with the Constitution Party. They're a third party, and they don't have a chance. Well, Dr. Haynes said it right. It's time to do what's right rather than worrying about whether you're going to be the top party on the ticket. But let me tell you, I think there's a breeze blowing across America. They're starting to get fed up with $14 trillion debt, $1 trillion deficit, and they are tired of two parties saying, just let me in power and it'll change, and nothing changes because the tough decisions will not be made by them. They will be made by constitutionalists who believe in God and the Constitution of the United States of America.